guys, welcome back to NHL Rumor Roundup. My name is Nathan and this is the show where I discuss the latest and biggest NHL trade rumors that you guys need to hear about. Now, the 2020 NHL trade deadline is pretty much just under 2 weeks away, and with that, the trade market is swirling, especially with Jason Zucker now off the board. But what is the latest on the New York Rangers, the Boston Bruins, the Habs, the Golden Knights, and the Ottawa Senators, and what trades could we see leading up to this year's trade deadline? Watch till the end for all my opinions and picks, and of course, hit that subscribe button if you're new. But starting us out in today's Rumor Roundup, I first need to talk about the New York Rangers and what is happening with them heading into the trade deadline. And you obviously have the apparent stuff. Chris Kreider right now is looking more and more likely to get traded as contract negotiations have pretty much been at a standstill. But to me, what's most interesting is what the plan is with Tony DeAngelo and right now, also Ryan Strome. Those two guys are ones that I think are polar opposites of each other. Personally, I would not trade Tony DeAngelo, and I would try my best to see what's out there for a guy like Ryan Strome. But right now for the New York Rangers, it's looking like they're doing the exact opposite. Now, in Frank Cervelli's recent TSN TradeBait article, he ended up having a lot of discussion about the Rangers and, again, their plan moving forward. And right now, it seems like, at least between Ryan Strome, that both New York and him are trying to resolve a contract dispute and are trying to get signed long-term. Meanwhile, for Tony DeAngelo, apparently, he costs way too much money, and now they're looking to shop him. Now, not actively shopping him, not like a guy like Chris Kreider, but right now, if a good offer were to come from the New York Rangers, a trade might actually happen. Now, Cervelli also says in this article that it is a money issue, that New York and DeAngelo are pretty far apart in what they want. And DeAngelo, who obviously is having a career year as an RFA at age 24, will want a lot of dough this offseason that it looks like right now New York does not want to pay. Now, again, personally, if I was New York, I would give the long-term contract to DeAngelo because personally, I think he has a lot better of a chance of replicating this season than a guy like Ryan Strome. But it appears to be the opposite. New York is negotiating with Ryan Strome. It seems like both parties are pretty convinced and are really similar in the cost. Meanwhile, it again is the opposite in DeAngelo's situation. In TSN's recent trade bait board, they had Tyler Toffoli at number 7 and Anthony DeAngelo as the 8th player on the trade bait board, which just shows how willing New York is able to trade him and how many different teams would potentially be interested. And for a team that is in need of offensive defensemen and has been open about it, for a team like the Vegas Golden Knights, I think it is a no-brainer to go after DeAngelo. Although he will likely cost a lot, he's in his prime right now and still has a lot of value left to give in the NHL, I think, at a 40-plus point pace for the next few years. Meanwhile, you look at a guy like Ryan Strome, who's been with Panarin throughout the whole year almost, and again, has a lot of those points because of him. I really don't see him replicating that kind of production. If New York were to give him like a $6 or $7 million contract, I don't think that'd be worth it whatsoever. You look at the center market right now, you have guys like jean-gabriel, and then nobody. Just imagine the type of value you could get for Strome at this point as a rental. To me, that is just a perfect situation that the New York Rangers are kind of wasting. Now, another guy to look out for the New York Rangers to potentially be traded at this deadline is Pavel Buchnevich, who on the trade bait board finds himself at 12th overall. Now, personally, I wouldn't trade Pavel Buchnevich. Again, at age 24, I still think he has a lot to give, but for the New York Rangers, his potential obviously hasn't been reached, and for a team like that, you're not going to get too much value afterwards, especially after this season. But Buchnevich is a guy that, although young, can provide some good value for some playoff teams and can be a very solid middle six guy. For the New York Rangers, though, I would again advise to trade Kreider, Ryan Strome first, but Buchnevich could also be gone. Now, moving on to the New York Rangers, to a team that is in full panic mode, that being the San Jose Sharks. And one of the players that's been floated around most to be traded at this trade deadline is Jumbo Joe Thornton. He's a guy that I personally would trade if I got the chance, but just thinking about Joe Thornton not in a Sharks uniform is kind of weird. I don't know about you guys, but he finds himself at 15th overall on TSN's trade bait board, and the Boston Bruins have been floated around as well. Now, in the past, the Boston Bruins obviously have been floated around with Joe Thornton because storylines, him going back on Boston. But Frank Cervelli confirms that the Boston Bruins have had interest in Thornton and that a reunion is actually possible. Now, Cervelli also mentions the Tampa Bay Lightning as potential suitors for Thornton, and honestly, that is cool, but at the same time, the Boston Bruins are the most interesting team in negotiations here, and one of the more likely teams in my opinion. Of course, seeing a Boston reunion with Joe Thornton would be really weird to see, just after so many great years in San Jose. Seeing him in a different uniform and back with the Bruins would be really weird, but at the same time, it does make a lot of sense for a team that is sometimes in need of depth, especially offensively. Even though Jumbo is not having his greatest year, he can still provide a lot of that, and of course the playoff experience speaks for itself. And for a team like Boston, it would be relatively low risk as well. Let's say Jumbo does nothing, well, you probably pay like a 3rd round pick for him and you just try it out, you see what happens. For a team like Boston, the storyline is almost too good to pass up. The reunion in Boston, trying to get that Stanley Cup, going for it one last time. It is almost too good to be true. Even as a Tampa Bay fan, I would like Jumbo Joe on that team, but him on Boston is just way too cool. Now, the one thing that makes these whole negotiations tricky is that Jumbo Joe does have a no-move clause, so it isn't an automatic trade if he were to get the offer to Boston. He has to say yes to the team and the trade he ends up getting. So that will affect things, but for a lot of playoff teams, I don't think that is going to affect too much. I think Jumbo Joe wants to get that Stanley Cup, and right now it is pretty obvious that the San Jose Sharks are not going to get it this year. But moving on from Jumbo Joe, another big storyline to keep up on will be what the Montreal Canadiens end up doing. And this is a storyline I've been covering quite a bit on this channel, whether there'll be buyers, sellers, whatever it might be. But right now, it'll kind of be in the middle as it stands, at least from what we've been told. It looks like they won't be selling anybody off, but they also won't be buying too much this deadline. And just a month ago, if you told me that, I would have thought you were crazy, because I thought they were going to sell Kovalchuk, Tatar, Petrie potentially, but right now, it looks like all 3 of those guys will be staying in Montreal as they try to make a playoff push, maybe even this season, but also next season too. Now, Ilya Kovalchuk is what was most interesting, because I thought even if they were trying to make the playoffs next season that they would still end up trading Kovalchuk, because yes, Kovalchuk has done great in Montreal, but I really don't see that type of success replicating next year. He'll be, what, like 36 or something, and I think the age will start catching up to him like it did in LA. Yes, the rejuvenation has been nice, but you could get as much as a 3rd or even 2nd round pick for Kovalchuk at this point. Right now, though, he's dropped back to 6th overall on the trade bait board after being in the top 5, and also you had Jeff Petrie, who has been on the trade bait board for a while, now going almost out of it at number 39. So for Marc Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens, it's pretty obvious right now that it's not going to happen. Pretty much nobody is going anywhere at this point. And they were kind of resurging in the last week until that loss versus the Arizona Coyotes. That's a team that could still be in the playoff race this year as it stands. Obviously, it depends on the standings for Montreal, but they also want to make the playoffs next year. That's likely why they're keeping Petrie, Tatar on that team to try and make the playoffs next season too. I think it won't happen this year, but I think next year could potentially be different, but for the Montreal Canadiens, there might be some off-season moves made, but right now, as it stands for this deadline, there won't be much action from them. Although the Montreal Canadiens have been switching like every single week, being a buyer, seller, buyer, one team that remains consistent in the Canadian landscape is the Ottawa Senators, and them going sell mode. Now, when I talked about Chris Kreider and there not being much contract negotiations, it seems like there's been way too many compared to jean-gabriel, and right now there's pretty much been no discussion. While Chris Kreider has had some talks with the New York Rangers, it looks like right now Pajot and the Ottawa Senators have had zero of it, which right now leans to a trade pretty much happening 100%. Now, I personally always thought there was a potential that Pajot would stay. That's a player that Ottawa has loved. He was born in Ottawa, hometown kid, and that's a situation where I could have seen potentially a contract extension. But he ended up rising in the trade bait board, going 3rd overall by TSN, and right now it's pretty much an inevitability at this point that he does go. Especially with the center market right now across the entire NHL, again, with Ryan Strome looking to be re-signed, jean-gabriel is really the only guy that can be a good middle 6 guy and a great one too. And it looks like Ottawa, especially with Zucker getting traded now, could get a 1st round pick plus more. And Ottawa is also looking to capitalize on that center market even more, even without Pageau. Also coming onto the TSN trade bait board has been Chris Tierney, going at number 17 to Ottawa. He's a guy that I personally didn't see as a huge deal, but could be with that. Again, when you look at the center market, there really is nothing out there, but Ottawa could have two of one of the bigger ones in this trade market, and likely could get a lot. Chris Tierney specifically is likely not going to get a first round pick or anything, but could get maybe a second on top of a prospect. Same thing of what Brendan Dillon is going right now in San Jose. And then also on the defense, you have Dylan DeMello, who right now on TSN is 14th overall on the trade bait board. He also is a big guy that I think will get a lot of value at this deadline. A second round pick, a prospect, plus even more potentially. That's a guy that in terms of all the defensemen available is one of the better ones, having a very solid year. But Ottawa right now is going full sell mode, which we kind of expected to start out the year. You have Pageau, Dylan DeMello, and Chris Tierney, all three of which could get a pretty handsome reward for Ottawa at this year's deadline. Again, nothing insane. You're not going to get Mark Stone type value for him, but still, there will be a lot of value for Ottawa this time around. But that'll be it for today's Rumor Roundup. Thanks all y'all for watching. Of course, comment down below your thoughts on today's Rumor Roundup, the rumors discussed, and which players you see being traded at this year's deadline. Share this video with your friends. Get the rumors out there. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Watch this COD and click this playlist right here to watch all of my NHL trade rumor content. My name is Nathan, and I'll see y'all next video or stream. Goodbye.